So we do a lot of videos on manifesting reality. There's been a lot of talk. There's been a lot of talk lately on manifesting reality, on bringing visions or mental images into existence. I completely subscribe to this line of philosophy. This is something that I've been discovering from real life experience, from real life application. Um, our thoughts become things. I subscribe to a belief that, or not so much a belief, but a map, a model that reality is a wave, is a wave function, and that each one of us has the divine capacity to generate reality waves through our thoughts, through our active consciousness, our visions. When you think about it, what reality is to you is perception. So imagine, a reality wave. You perceive reality, and you have a map of reality, the belief structure of what you believe is reality internally. So by the same token that you can perceive what you perceive or believe reality to be, in actuality is but a representation of reality, an internal representation of reality. So by that same token, accept or consider that you may create reality in the opposite direction. So that inner representation becomes an outer representation. So accept or consider that. So I do. I completely believe that the way I see things is that there's infinite or multiple realities, multiple universes, infinite realities, and there are competing formative realities, weak waves in my mind of what I can visualize. If I can see it or visualize it internally, if I can hear it internally or see it internally or conceive it internally, it becomes a potential reality. It becomes a potential reality. And with practice, I can take that potential reality that's in my mind and make it exist externally. So now, before this sounds like magic, it's actually, you can visualize it easier with the mundane. So let's say everything we see around us, everything we see around us, this vehicle, this car, this building across the street that they're building. I don't know if we can see it very well here. All these things started is plans, visions, dreams, concepts in a person's mind. They were potential realities in a person's mind. And they were created maybe by crude forms, using hands, using plans. You draw a plan of a car, design on a car with a CAD design program, and that goes to some engineers, and there's financing, there's other beings creating realities, and those reality waves, and those reality waves intersect, and there's resonance, and their reality waves become reality in tangible form or outer reality. So when I talk about you have a reality in here and you can bring it into phase or create it externally, if you want, you can choose to see it in a very mundane way as, oh, I have a design or a plan. I write my plan down. I write my design down. I draw my design. I show my design to others. I convince others to use building materials, and they spend time and work and effort, and they go out and they build. They build. If I design a building, if I design a house, I visualize it in my mind. So it starts as a weak wave or a weak visualization, a weak reality in my mind. And then I draw it down on a piece of paper, and it gets stronger and stronger because I'm taking it into an external manifestation. And then I hand it to some builders. I go hire construction contractors because I can persuade them. Maybe with money I pay them, or I persuade them. I influence them. I influence them to to build my design. I go to the hardware store and I buy parts, or I order parts. I order brick and wood and steel and glass, and I find a contractor or an architect who polishes my design. So you can look at it however way you want. Maybe this process takes a year. Maybe this process takes a few weeks, a few months, depending on my resources, depending on my power. And what power is the ability to exercise, to manifest reality. So we're going to talk about figurative, metaphorical representation. So let's talk about God. God is the most powerful. So in a second, in a blink of an eye, in a split second, he can manifest reality. He, she. I'm using these anthropomorphic terms just so we can have a conversation. So I'm not attached to these terms, and you shouldn't be attached either. I'm just using these terms so we can have a conversation. So God has the most powerful, omnipotent, all-powerful, can create, manifest reality in an instant, can create and manifest and wrangle matter in an instant. Okay? But man, in the image of God, with a very, the most infinitesimal fraction of God's power, it takes us a longer time to manifest reality. And we do it crudely as we wrangle and struggle with matter, As we, just the same way a little child, if you look at the power between, I have a 2-year-old nephew. And if you look at the power between a 2-year-old nephew that as he tries to create, as he tries to use, he's learning to use his hands, his fine motor skills. He's learning the world around him. So let's say creating a piece of pottery. He may see his mother create a piece of pottery, and he tries to imitate it, and he very crudely uses clay or whatever material that he has, mud. He doesn't understand exactly what it is. He doesn't have the fine motor skills. He hasn't developed yet the cognitive facility, but he still has creative power. He can still visualize, and he can still create. So let's extend that analogy to God, to man and God. So we can still create. We're in God's image. We can still create. We create cruder. It takes us more time. We don't really understand what we're working with. We don't really understand the tools that we have. But we still have the ability to create. We still have the ability to manifest. And the first step in increasing our power is understanding that we have that ability, taking responsibility and understanding that we have that ability. And understanding that ability doesn't stop with being able to make pottery or furniture or cars or trucks or vehicles. We have the ability to create lives. We have the ability to create realities, to create situations that we may think we have the ability to influence the decision and choices of others without necessarily having to tangibly persuade them or tangibly have contact with them. There's a concept, I'm going to butcher this concept, but I'm going to explain it as best as I understand. There's a concept called quantum entanglement. And with quantum entanglement, you have subatomic particles, quarks, or I forgot what the breakdown of a quark, but if they're influenced, if they're spun in one way, if they're spun in a particular direction, a particular angle, there are other quarks or subatomic particles that are entangled with them. So even though they're not physically touching, we think our understanding of nature is that for one thing to influence something else, it has to touch that thing. For me for one object to influence or move another object, it has to physically contact that object. Or it has to physically contact an object that contacts that object. So even, let's say, if I blow out a candle, so I'm creating a pressure wave or pressure gradient in my lungs, and it's influencing the wave of the candle. Please forgive, my poor physics understanding and explanation. But you get the point that our conventional understanding is that for one thing to influence something else, there has to be contact, either direct contact with the influencer and the influencee, or contact between a medium of one thing contact, like dominoes. So one domino hits another domino, that hits another domino, that hits another domino, for domino over here to influence domino way over there. If they're not touching, it has to touch other dominoes to hit that domino. Well, um, we can influence events, and we can have cause and effect without physically touching. So maybe there's contact in another dimension. Maybe there's contact in another dimension, or maybe the mediums of contact are not known or aware to us. So, at this present time, it might sound crazy to you, but no more crazier than trying to explain electricity to someone, maybe 200 years ago, and you're trying to explain them electricity and cell phones, and you're trying to explain to them radio waves, and you're trying to explain to them how you can be in America and talk to somebody in the UK instantly. They wouldn't believe you. How can that happen? How can that be? You have to be in hearing distance for the person's thinking with the rational mind. They're thinking in conventional rational, what we see is what is. Someone thinking that way. You would not be able to explain to them 200 years ago radio waves. You would not be able to explain to them cell phones. You wouldn't be able to explain to them satellite communication or the internet. They would not believe you unless they saw it. And then if they saw it, they wouldn't believe you. So just as they could have been uninformed or ignorant of the possibilities of nature and reality, consider that I may be ignorant, uninformed of the possibilities of nature and reality, that I can communicate with my mind to someone who I have not seen, who I don't see. I can communicate with my mind to someone across the planet. I can influence events with my thinking and my thoughts and my visions. I can influence events not only in the present but in the past. That I can influence events that have taken place already, because most of us have a very limited concept of time. We think that time is something that happens and there are events, it's linear. We see time as this linear thing, and not that it isn't. But can we consider that maybe it's not linear? Can we consider that it's not static? Can we consider that events that have taken place can be altered in the present? That they can be altered in the past? That we can alter the past now? Can we consider that? That the past can be altered in the future? Can we consider that? Can we consider or imagine that time is not static but dynamic? So, can we consider and imagine that space is not static but dynamic? Can we consider or imagine that there are infinite possibilities, infinite future possibilities? Can we consider or imagine that there's infinite versions of us, infinite conscious streams of us that may divert in the future and go on to infinite paths? Can we consider and imagine that? So the path that you go on is the path that you want to go on, the path that you have the power and the will and the consciousness to choose. Now, we can exercise that in small, mundane things as simple as a daily planner. Where am I going to be at 12 o'clock? Well, I want to be at, Starbucks on 14th Street at 12 o'clock. So I'm going to write that in my plan, and I'm going to be on the Starbucks at the corner of 14th and Mariposa, and I'm not in San Francisco, I'm in Austin, and I don't even know if those streets intersect, but I'm just pulling up streets. I'm not good with street names, but remembering street intersections. But so your way of controlling space, your projection in space can be, well, you can see it it's very mundane. But why not believe that, that if you want to be at Starbucks at 12 o'clock, you write in your planner and you make sure that you do things so that you wind up there. You make sure that you leave the house. If it takes you 30 minutes to get to Starbucks, you leave the house 30 minutes before you have to get there. And, you can do those sort of things. But can you believe or can you consider that, let's say, if you want to be in Moscow at freaking Lenin Square, I don't know if that's a place in Moscow, but if you want to be at a particular place in Moscow 15 years from now, can you consider and believe that you have the power to visualize it, and by a series of events that you may not have direct, logical, rational control over, wind up in Moscow, Lenin Square 15 years from now? Or not just you, but someone else. If you want someone else I've done this before with people where I have visualized a friend or someone, ex, someone that I've fallen out of contact with, and I've visualized them, riding in the car with me, riding in the passenger seat next to me, and us having conversations, and us talking about, just talking about stuff. I visualize scenarios with people that on the surface, it seems like we've completely fallen out, and the chances odds that we'll never see each other, speak to each other again. And those things have manifested. They've happened. They've happened across time and space, where the person was thousands of miles away, where I find that the vision that I fixed in my head occurs. I've done that with things. I've done that with with automobiles, visualizing myself behind the wheel of a particular automobile. And circumstances take place where those visualizations happen. I've visualized myself in places with people, having relationships with people that I saw at a distance. And now some of those things happen because, I made them happen in a logical, tangible fashion, but some of those things happen by series of coincidences, series of unforeseen coincidences that things just fell into place. Now, is it coincidence? Is it me seeing what I want to see, rationalizing after the fact what I want to believe? Maybe. But I find that the more that I take responsibility, and the more that I believe that I have control and power over the future, and the more that I believe that I have control and power over the actions of others, whether it's one individual or many individuals, I find that the more faith and belief, the clearer my vision, the clearer my thought, the more deliberate my vision and my thoughts, the more deliberate my acts of imagination, of visualizing and seeing and putting myself there and seeing those people and hearing, constructing conversations, constructing events. I find that the more deliberate I am doing these things, the more likely they are to happen. I'm finding that it's getting to the point where I can see that it's possible for one to have a great deal of power and influence and control over reality starting here. I can see that, okay, if I take this little bit of manifestation that I've done, if I was really good at it, I could see how a Bill Gates could build a Microsoft exercising these powers. I could see how a Napoleon could conquer, Europe exercising these powers. I can see how Barack Obama can, become the first black president exercising these powers. I can see how man can go to the moon exercising these powers. I can see how these great monumental achievements of an individual or of a group of individuals can happen by visualizing and holding a vision, holding an image, holding every day in, day out, believing that it's going to happen. Questioning doubt is so counter to accomplishing these things. Oh, what if this happens? Oh, what if that happens? Oh, what if it rains? Oh, what if we get a flat tire? Oh, what if they don't show up? Oh, what if they don't like me? Oh, what if, yeah, those things happen and they can happen. But there is a tremendous power, I'm discovering firsthand, a tremendous power in visualizing, conceiving, believing, having faith that your beliefs will manifest, having faith that a way will happen, having faith that somehow, some way, your will be done. God's will be done, but somehow, some way, faith will move mountains. So I want to advocate to everyone to take responsibility for your future. Don't get caught up in the hows and the what ifs. It's easy to say that. Me, myself, I'm big into hows. I like to plan and strategize and come up with logistics and crunch numbers. I love to do that stuff, but sometimes those things can be counterproductive, because sometimes when you get too caught up in the planning, you're creating reasons why things that you want won't happen. So what I'm discovering is the vision is more important. The vision of the end result is more important sometimes. Sometimes the plan happens. Sometimes when you try to force the plan, you can get more caught up in the obstacles, and you can get more caught up in the obstacles and the reasons why the plan won't happen than you get carried away with the reasons why it will happen. So I'm finding that I get more results by focusing on the vision, the end result, by believing and embracing and making a deep texture of the end result in my mind. I've done this accidentally. I'm going to tell the story. For instance, there was one time several years ago, maybe 6, 7 years ago, I was in a house. I was living in a house. There was no heat. It was real cold. And it was very cold, and it was just very cold and uncomfortable. In the middle of winter, no heat. So, you know, you had to bundle up, put all the clothes. You had to put on a bunch of clothes just to exist. So I'm in this house, and it's cold, and I'm trying to run my little website business in the dumb way that I was going about it at the time. And it was dumb because I had limited beliefs, limited expectations of what I could do, limited expectations of what people would pay me to do, I set the ceiling and the bar so low for myself that, and I was operating at a quarter of that. So, but anyway, I was in this, cold house, bundled up, and I was visualizing myself. I think I got on the internet and I was Googling and I was looking at palm trees, and I was visualizing myself at a pool side with palm trees and a body of water, like a natural body of water. So it was very fuzzy, but that's what I was seeing in my mind. I was like, wow, that's where do I want to be right now? And I was thinking, I want to be at a mansion in a poolside with palm trees, and I was creating this image in my head, fantasizing this image in my head, very playfully, not just almost complaining to myself, but alleviating the circumstance with this vision, with this fantasy. So maybe in a couple of days, I had this impulse to reach out to a friend of mine who I hadn't heard from in a couple of years. So I sent him an email, and he responded immediately. Hey, man, I've been thinking about you. I was just going to reach out. I was just wondering because this friend of mine was a graphic designer, and he knew I did web development, and he knew I had a little bit of, I went to school for computer science, so he wanted to partner with me where he would design the websites, come up with the colors and the fonts and the design and the layout, and I worry about the coding, the HTML and whatnot. So he had a particular client, and this particular client was doing these parties, had done parties like Super Bowl parties. So the Super Bowl was coming up in Tampa, Florida. So he was having a Super Bowl party, and he had hired my friend to do a website and to handle some of the marketing, sending people emails. And so this party involved, this guy was like a financial consultant, a financial advisor, and this party involved, having people fly from Canada and Switzerland, where do the Swiss, Switzerland? I get the Swiss and Switzerland, I get them confused. Where all the banks are. The banks in Swiss neutrality, where all the banks are. So flying these people to Tampa, Florida, and then having these parties. And so I was helping my friend. My friend recruited me to help him build this website and to send email blast and help him create this image of this event virtually. So we built a website, and we made these flyers that we mailed to these people. And at some point, so the guy sponsoring and the guy promoting this, he had a team that was going to be in Florida and on the ground and driving people around and setting things up. And I don't know what happened. Like, some things fell through. I don't know what happened, but my friend ended up having to go actually to Florida. We were in Atlanta. And so, actually having to go to Florida. And of course, he wanted to take me with him. I had all kinds of excuses why I couldn't go. I had other stuff to do. I didn't have any money. I had all these excuses, but I ended up finding myself, us driving to Florida, and we took some other, guys with us to help out. So what we ended up doing is we spent a week and some change, driving there. These businessmen, no one came from Switzerland. They only came from Canada, but they were, doctors, lawyers, some home builders, or they were, successful businessmen that we were picking them up at the airport, driving them around, taking them from place to place. And what ended up happening was that part of the venue was that them staying in these golf resorts, these like golf condominium resorts, and we ended up staying in a is this very nice like these $500,000. No, they weren't $500,000. These were $1,000,000. I'm sorry, I'm not exaggerating. These are if I can think of the name, the Bella Colina. It's it's a suburb outside of Orlando, the Bella Colina. I don't remember if that was the house that we stayed in was called the Bella Colina or the neighborhood, but it was a neighborhood that was fashioned to look like Italian villas. So the whole time we were there, we stayed in this very nice, luxurious home. It was already furnished. It had this plush leather furniture and this pool. It was on the border of the lake, so you could sleep outdoors because it was real warm outside. So you can go into your bedroom, and the bedroom had a patio, and you can go out in the patio, and they had this furniture where you're sleeping on the porch, and the pool is right there, and then the lake is there, and the neighbors. There's other fine homes. I mean, these are mansions for all intents and purposes, and they're lining the lake. And some of the neighbors are landing planes. They're landing flotilla planes on the lake. So at some point during the day, I'm outside at the pool. I'm sitting in a lounge chair with my laptop, and there's the pool. I'm surrounded by palm trees. There's the lake, and I'm like, this is exactly what I was visualizing, a couple of weeks ago when I was in the cold, bundled up in all my clothes in Atlanta, and I had no idea I had no way of thinking I would ever be here at that particular time. And I was like, what a freaking coincidence. This is exactly, I remember the moment, I remember, now as we speak, I remember the moment when I was sitting at the patio and I was working. I was looking at the palm trees, looking at the lake, and looking at the pool. And I was like, wow, this is exactly, I remember when I was visualizing this, back in Atlanta. I remember visualizing this, and what a coincidence, here I am. And I remember now as we speak when I was visualizing that, when I was in the house in Atlanta. It was cold, and I was, where should I be? I want to be on at a pool in, tropical, someplace tropical. And I thought, what a strange coincidence. What a very strange coincidence. And I had this weird feeling. This is how you know when you're tuned in to the magic of this existence. Sometimes you may get this weird feeling. It's like a chill. And maybe it goes up your stomach, or maybe it goes up your spine, but it's like a chill and an exhilaration. It's like a chill and exhilaration. Sometimes you might get it like during sex, or if you, take a bong rip or something, you might get it. Depends, I'm sure there's other circumstances where you may get this experience, but a chill or exhilaration where you're so glad to be in the here and now. I got this chill and this exhilaration of, wow, there's some real magical stuff going on, And so that was several years ago. I've had similar things happen. I've had them happen before, but I wasn't conscious. I didn't add the pieces together, and I've had them happen since. We'll talk more about that later. What I want to part on to you is the power and the importance of not getting caught up in what you may perceive to be the dreariness of your circumstances. So don't get caught up in that. I know it's easier said than done. But I want to share with you what the power and exhilaration and the fun that I've been having by visualizing my ideal circumstances and watching the pieces fall into place. Little things like a computer or a car or a mate, a girlfriend, or even if it's just a date, or an experience or an event, little things, or, it could be a type of food. Like you might really be in the mood one day for some pecan pie, but you're someplace where they don't make pecan pie, or, you haven't seen any pecan pie, and somehow that pecan pie falls out of the sky. I don't have this down to a science, I'm not going to tell you like, you watch movies like The Secret and they talk about thoughts or things and you imagine things and they appear. I'm not going to say that things work like that, but I will say that the more vivid your visualization is, the more sincere your expectations are, the more happy you are and in tune with the everyday magic that happens around us, this everyday trip. You know, you can take all kinds of drugs, go on all kinds of journeys and experiences. I can't say I've been on every sort of trip because I haven't, or every sort of experience, but everyday life can be a trip if you let it. If you just look at all the coincidences that take place and all the magic, that happens on an every moment to moment basis. If you appreciate the beauty and the awe of what's around you, you will find that you will be privy to more beauty and awe. And you will find that some of the things that you visualize, some of the things that you want, that you visualize, they come into existence. And it may seem like a coincidence. Maybe it is a coincidence. It may seem like rationalization after the fact. Maybe it is. But this is the mission that I've been on. This is the discovery that I've been on. And I wish I knew this much, much earlier. And so, and I've found that the greater my belief, the greater my expectation, the greater my appreciation, the greater my faith, the greater my self-induced happiness, the more things come my way. So that's the message for today. We're trying out this video blogging thing in a very minimal way. And my intention is to give you case studies. That was a case study, what I just told you. My intention is to give you case studies. And my intention is to speak to you in a very sincere and a very sincere person-to-person, spirit-to-spirit way. And not get caught up in dogmas. So dogmas are fun. Belief structures are fun. Whatever it is, whether it's Christian, Judeo, Islam, Buddhist. There's a lot of New Age dogma. So I've found people that get just as zealous about New Age dogma. Well, Esther Hicks said it happens this way, and you got to do this and twist you got to turn 3 times and stand on your head, or Stuart Wilde says it goes like this, and you turn around, spin times, 3 times, and I don't know, maybe I'm not discounting anyone's way or dogma, but I don't know. Dogmas are fun to play with. Rules are fun to play with. Maybe I'm giving you a dogma right now or rules right now. But don't get caught up into that. Don't get caught up into that. I'm trying not to get caught up into that. I'm just trying to get caught up in the essentials and the basics. There's some things in all these different schools of thought, or all these teachers, there's some things that are the same that intersect, that you hear over and over again. And for instance, positive expectations. It's important to expect positive outcomes. You hear that over and over again. Faith, having faith. You can read faith, whether we're talking the Bible or the Quran or I don't know. I bet you that, I don't know this for a fact, but I bet you they go in on faith in the Bhagavad Gita. I'm not saying it right, but I bet you they go in on faith there. So faith is very important. Prayer manifests itself in many ways. I think that prayer, who are you praying to? Are you praying to a God in heaven? Are you praying to the God within? You're praying to yourself. Are you asking? Are you commanding? Are you thanking? Are you giving gratitude? On that note, gratitude is another key intersection. Intersection, being thankful, being appreciative, and not appreciative in a pacifying way or giving it lip service, gratitude lip service, but deep appreciation, deep thankfulness, deep, joyful thankfulness. Like, I'll talk about me. Um, every time I walk into the door of my apartment, every time I walk into the door, I have a deep thankfulness of that it's there. I have a deep thankfulness. I'm so thankful and happy for my apartment, um, because you know I know what it's like to not have an apartment and not have a place to live. You know, and not have a place to call your own, not have a door that you can walk in and shut yourself out from the outside world, not having a bed that you can lie down in, or a bathroom that you can use, your own shower you can go in and use, and anytime you want, a toilet you can use anytime you want. It's not filthy and disgusting, or um, I haven't always had those things. So, I grew up having those things, and you take them for granted. You take them for granted, but then if you try not having them, and then you realize, whoa, this is special. Whoa, I got a door I can shut and a door I can lock, and this is my place. You know, Deep appreciation for having an automobile. Deep appreciation because there's many parts in the world people have never owned an automobile. And and for all logical reasons or purpose, for any way that they can predict, they don't see. There's no way they can. An automobile is a magnificent thing. If you have an automobile, be thankful. It doesn't matter whether own it or lease it, or how much the note is due. It doesn't matter whether it's, a 2015 or a 1973. It doesn't matter. If you have an automobile and you can stick the key in the ignition and turn the crank and it cranks up and gets you from point A to point B, be thankful, because there are so many people that don't have an automobile and that don't have that power to get from, A to B with a vehicle. And a vehicle can change your life. Be thankful. If you have a computer, be thankful. If you have internet access, there's so many people. Internet access is power. Any sort of internet access is power. You can find out in 2-3 seconds what once upon a time, when I was a kid, the sort of information that you can find out now in a few seconds could have taken days of research, days of digging around a library, going to a library and flipping through the card. I forgot what those things are called. Those big boxes, and they had cards, and you pull them out, and the card index, different cards, or using the Rolodex, and going through microfiche, not Rolodex, microfiche, looking for magazine articles. Like the fact that we can pull up information and knowledge in a second's notice on your phone. You can pull up the sort of information on your phone that 20 years ago would have taken somebody, days to find. We don't have that material in this library. But you have to go to our branch library, or our sister library. We don't have that here. We have it somewhere else. Or 50 years ago, the things that you can find out now, in a second. What somebody may have had to, you live in East Point, Georgia, and there's information you can find out in a second's notice that once upon a time you would have had to have gone to the public New York Library main branch, to find. You would have had to have traveled from library to library and talked to librarians and go on a mission, a hunt to find this knowledge. Books that we can just order and they show up at our house because of Amazon or Kindle. We can download on our phones. Once upon a time, you would have had to have gone on a mission to find those books. So be thankful for the knowledge that you have access to. Be thankful for your family. Be thankful for your family, because they won't always be there and you won't always be there. I lost my mother a couple of years ago, and I've known, your mother. I knew my mother my whole life. It's like the sun rising every morning. The sun is going to rise. The sun is a certainty. It's there's no doubt that the sun won't be there. I could not imagine. Yeah, I would have dreams or nightmares. Oh, what if my mother died? I would consciously imagine, what if my mother died? But I didn't really understand life without my mother. I didn't really understand what life would be without her. Well, now I do. And so I understand the value of being thankful for every person in your life. Don't take people for granted. Don't take anyone for granted. Don't take your friends for granted. Don't take your girlfriends or your boyfriends for granted. Don't take your family for granted. There's no guarantee that you don't know how much longer the time you have with them. It's not infinite. There'll be one day where they'll be gone or you'll be gone. You know, um, you know. Think of so many elderly people that you may know. You may know some elderly people, and they're so much older, and all their friends and family have passed on, and it's just them. You know, and people don't want to spend the time with them. Everybody doesn't want to go hang out with grandma or great grandmother, and so they spend a lot of time alone. No one wants to, come by and chat with them or spend time with them, and that may be you one day. As successful as you become, as friendly as you may be, people aren't always trying to hang out with old people. That may be you one day. So be thankful for your friend, the companions that you have. Be thankful for the people around you. Be thankful. Be grateful. Be grateful for your health. Be grateful for your limbs. You got, 2 arms and 2 legs. There are people that don't have 2 arms and 2 legs. They're missing a foot or missing a finger be thankful that you're in one piece. If you got 10 fingers and 10 toes and 2 arms and 2 legs, be thankful. If you can see, you can hear, you can smell, be thankful. Be thankful if you have all your pieces and parts. Be thankful. You can read and you can write. Be thankful. Think of all the things before you start complaining about anything, or feeling dissatisfaction, feeling dis-ease about anything. Think about what you have. Like, really think about. Think about what you have. And 9 out of 10, 9.9 out of 10, you have way more. More often than not, especially if you're watching this video, you have internet. You have time to sit and watch a video of some guy talk about stuff. You have a lot to be thankful for. So it all starts with gratitude. So anyway, I've gone on enough. I'm going to close out. I'm going to go into this Whole Foods and find something healthy to eat. Maybe some. They had some like roasted kale or some fire dried kale, or I like grilled food, so grilled fresh vegetables. Maybe find something like that. And I don't know if they have it or not. That's what I want them to have. So maybe they'll have it, but have positive expectations. Have faith. Be grateful. Visualize what you want. Don't get caught up on what's wrong or what you don't have or what's not right, or don't get caught up on that. Get caught up on what's right. And there's one school of thought: live in the now. Don't worry about the future. Don't put your mind in the future. I don't know what to say about that. I like thinking about the future. I like visualizing, the good things that are coming my way. I like visualizing, the good things that I can do for others. I like visualizing, smiles on people's faces for, things that I bring into existence. So I like visualizing experiences, and that's me. It makes my present, more interesting, more enjoyable. Even though I get immersed in the everyday magic here now too. So, I'm a fan of living in the future. The past is all right too. I mean, if you want to not dwell, but sometimes there's lessons to learn by thinking about the past. I don't want to say just forget the past and let it go. I mean, we learn lessons from the past. And sometimes the past is pleasant to think about. Sometimes it's pleasant to listen to an old song and remember when you were at your middle school dance, or, when you met your first love, or, moments with your parents or with your sisters and brothers. That's okay with that. I think if it's positive, doesn't matter if you dwell in the past, if you're dwelling in the positive past, or if you're thinking about the positive future, or if you're just positive and really embracing the things, the beautiful positive things in the present. But I think the most important takeaway is to be positive. And on that note, I'm signing off. It's been great talking to you. And feel free to drop me a line. Subscribe to my channel, of course. Drop me a line, here in the comment section if you want to talk about something or, chat about something or, drop me a line. So, signing out.